with revamping this podcast a little bit, we are trying to bring in anybody and everybody that we think is vital to Illinois high school baseball and what's going on here and can provide quality insight. And I think we have a perfect first guest, Tim Funkhouser, the head baseball coach at Edwardsville High School. He is a legend in his own right, and I'm going to get here, Coach, as we welcome you on. Hopefully everything's good with the connection, but just some introductory nuggets on Coach Funkhouser, because it is a long list of impressive things you have done in your baseball career. Let's see. So tell me what I am wrong with here, if anything. But you took over in the 1998-1999 season at Edwardsville at age 26. You since have won 14 regionals, 12 sectionals, 8 super sectionals. You've had 2 state runners-up. You've had a third-place finish, and you have won 3 state titles. You've won all 3 in the last 4 years, or 3 out of 4 that you guys were actually able to play. Your record at Edwardsville is 742 and 186, which is an 800 winning percentage, which that's stupid. And your career wins, including triad, is 835, 8th all-time in Illinois. You are a 3-time IHS BCA 4A Coach of the Year in 2019, 2022, and 2023. You were the IHSA Baseball Coach of the Year in the 2016-2017 season. You are in the Hall of Fame in the National High School Baseball Coaches Association, also in the IHSA Baseball Coaches Association, and the St. Louis Amateur Baseball Hall of Fame as well. And I see you might be on mute right now. And if you are having trouble, welcome. But those are just a couple fun facts. Did I mess anything up? Do you know all these? Do you have them written down on your board right behind you and look at them every day? Or how are you doing, Coach?
Well, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me today. This will be enjoyable, and thanks for everything that Prep Baseball Report has done for our game. I know it's been a long time. We've had a relationship, and it's seen a great growth in our game, and it's been great for it. And
I mean, I'll get right in there, Coach. Like, one thing that's always impressed me with you is how you handle your program. And your program has won 30 plus games a year, more than I think it hasn't. And I'll just start with, like, what is your vision with your program, with your team? What is the most important thing to you? I've always seen you early in the year at the Kickoff Classic, and I feel like from that point to when you get into the postseason, your lineup, you could have 40 different lineups, 40 different players playing at any given time. Give me just your overall take on Edwardsville, what you're trying to do, and how you go about it.
Well, we want to schedule the best opponents that we can, and with that comes we have a lot of depth usually. So then it creates inter-competition, as well as feeling like 1 or 2 guys don't have to carry the load. And then whenever we schedule high-level opponents throughout the season, it continues to test our guys, whether it's conference, which has always been tough, but our non-conference is extremely tough too, which I think refines kind of the game, and it points out our flaws, as well as gives your number 5 or 6 or 7 a pitcher a chance to pitch against teams that are as good or sometimes even better than our conference teams. So when we get to the postseason, we've already seen maybe a team of the caliber you might face in a state tournament, or even sometimes we
100%, right?
First game. I mean, last year we faced a guy throwing 97 in our regional semi, and we were the number 1 seed. So you got to find a way to to get by to the next game. And I think our schedule really helps with that. And then we just try to build a conducive environment for growth, that hopefully we work on developing all the players. I think that was kind of evident last year when we played in our third place game. And I hadn't coached in the third place game. I talked to some veteran guys up at the state tournament that actually had been, and they talked about how they were trying to get more guys in and trying to balance that competitiveness with taking care of your guys. I mean, it was easier for me to make that decision of pulling guys out early and throwing other guys in there that hadn't been playing consistently because they had been working hard throughout, and they expected to do well, and they went in. Sure enough, they did extremely well.
To me, and I was talking to our guys a little bit before this interview, before we hopped on here, and I think I've mentioned it in the past too, and I told you to your face when I saw you in Joliet, I think, but I thought last year was, from afar, one of the most impressive coaching jobs that you've done. I've seen Edwardsville now. I started doing this in 2015, and you've had all kinds of high-level players come through with big commitments, whether it's, Matthew Boyer going on and doing what he did, or a Drake Westcott going on and doing what he's doing now. I could go on, Hayden Moore, on and on with former players. But coming into this year, you have Joe Chirotto, who's a big commit. You've got Tony Eberlin committed to TCU. Chirotto's committed to Alabama. But right before the playoffs, you lose Chirotto, who not only is he one of your top arms, I mean, he's a low 90s guy that competes, that can throw multiple pitches in any count. He's not just a talented guy. He's a now guy. He's a guy that wins. So you lose him, who also plays center field when he's not pitching. He hits in the middle of your order. How did that impact you guys? How did you handle it? What was the message to the team? Because you go on, like you said, first game of the playoffs, you face a guy throwing 97. You are led by sophomores on the mound then throughout the entire playoff run. So take me through that. Am I overstating it? Did you feel like you guys had to make moves? The guys stepped up? Like, what is your take on that?
I think just really our culture is strong. I mean, it amazes me as I've coached over the years how much ownership our players have taken on. And the need, I would say that when a couple things happened during the course of the year, we had several different injuries throughout the year. And truthfully, we've had several injuries leading up to the state tournament. I mean, we had our number 4 hitter a few years ago, Joe Copeland, he played the first maybe 3 innings of our semi game against Brother Rice, and then had to come out of the game and didn't play in the state championship game. And then we had kind of that next up mentality. Another guy went out there, and I think that was Chirotto playing right field that game as a freshman. But we've had multiple instances of that. Adam Powell ended up hitting an opposite field home run in the state championship game, batting 4th, and he was struggling, truthfully, he came off an injury his junior year. He was struggling to get in the lineup at the beginning of the year. His production didn't dictate it, but his work ethic and his past performance did. And it's just a testament to the culture we have. Last year, with the 2 sophomores, with Milburn and Eberlin, kind of leading the way on the mound, and Hunter Ball was another sophomore. Those guys got some competition as freshmen, and Hunter pitched against McCracken County and several teams in high leverage situations as a freshman, and Milburn continued to develop that way, and Eberlin too. It showed stuff, but he continued to show more poise and consistency during the course of the year. And we never had to have a talk of really the 2 things I'll get back to. 2 things I think were significant to identify where our team was. Number 1, Chirotto going down, and he was playing with some injuries leading up, and we didn't think it was going to be a season ender. But when we discovered that, the team just continued to move forward. And I didn't even have to have a talk of like, hey, we can still do this. Guys will step up, and like kind of your rah-rah stuff. It was everybody knew the situation, and let's go. The second challenge was really when the seeds came out, and we knew we were going to face Ethan Bagwell from Collinsville, and even though we had been the number one seed, we faced the number 6 seed in our subsectional, and that was going to be straight out the gates. And our guys, the way they reacted, like I knew I saw it on the internet. I didn't know if all the guys knew because it just came out within the half hour. So I talked to them briefly and was kind of looking, weighing a response or whatever, and they kind of just was ambivalent to what was going on. Like, okay, coach, thanks. And we never really had to talk about it again. Our guys kind of went kind of that mission focus, and I think it shows a great maturity. A lot of it, I think, starts each year in the weight room. A lot of it carries over from previous years. We've had a lot of recent postseason success, but even before that, I think it builds a lot of confidence from the teams and the guys that came before. So I think we have several multiplier effects, and that would be the history, as well as just knowing that the guys before went through a path, and then also our multiplier effect is trying to encourage every guy, the buzzword is for everybody to create the best version of themselves, but we try to take that to a level of growth in their individual game as well as the team game. So I know everybody's working on individual development throughout, but we try to get more specific with that, whether it's pitching or whether it's on the base pass, defense, etc. And I think that as guys build confidence, and they're able to build skill, and then get into action and see how it translates, I think as the season progresses, they continue to feel like we're not playing. Well, I guess one of the things I mentioned during our early season, like before the season started and you got the 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks before we actually start games, I mean, we were inter squadding, and we're able to do a lot of inter squads early in that time because we have some pitching depth, and you're able to see good pitching throughout and really hone the skills. But our guys, like, we wanted to make sure that our guys understand that they're playing against the game, and we don't want to play against the opponent. We definitely don't want to play against ourselves. So as we kind of sold that mantra and got guys to really singular focus on just playing against the game, it doesn't matter who you're playing against. The Dodgers and the Yankees did not play the game well in that one inning, and it just destroyed them. I mean, the most fundamental things of watching a ball into your glove. It was a tougher play for Volpe on the run, with the runner kind of taking some of the throwing lane, and then obviously not covering first base for Garrett Cole. But
A few that stick out to me is when I watch you coach, and you mentioned you're playing against the game. When I see you at the Kickoff Classic, which is the first weekend of the season, and when I see you, whether it's at Lincoln Land in a super sectional game against Marist and Coach Sefcik over there, when they had Kendall Ewell and Jason Hodges and Justin Janis and all kinds of good players, or when I see you at the state finals, your demeanor never changes. The way you take the third base coaching box, the way you handle big situations in a big moment, maybe it's changing inside of you. Maybe there's turmoil going on, but that's something I've always been really impressed with. And I think that trickles down to your team. Your team always takes on the persona of the head coach, and your team never seems rattled in a big moment. Even last year I think it was the state finals, could have been the semis, but that was one takeaway that I have on you, and just how impressed I am with how you handle yourself on the field. But getting back to your team getting into mission mode and facing, getting a tough draw where you're facing an Ethan Bagwell. That's something you guys have had to do year after year after year after year, if I'm not mistaken. And whether it was the year before getting through a Xander Muth, or years in the past getting through a Hayden Yanger from O'Fallon, who's now at the Blue Jays. So that takes me to the question of I want to talk about your area. I want to talk about Edwardsville. like the St. Louis area is loaded. There is good baseball down there, and just that entire Southern Illinois, going all the way over to Effingham. You talking about scheduling good teams, but has it always been like that down in St. Louis ever since you were growing up? Has anything changed? That's where I want to start with first, and then I'm going to take it over to just Edwardsville in your town and talk about that a little bit next. But talk to me about St. Louis, the area, how much they care about baseball. Has it always been that way?
Oh, I'd say there's always been a contingent of teams and programs. I mean, there's programs within it that annually are competing at a high level with the ability to go deep in a playoff run as well as try to win our conference. And then there's those elite type of players that can help carry some of those guys along the way, or that can just be your stopper for your team. But no, we've had, I mean, Highland, Joel Hawkins, he's always prepared. I mean, he's the guy that's always has his team ready, and then all of a sudden you throw a Odorizzi on top of it, and you're looking for holes to poke in. And fortunately, we outlasted him a few years ago in the postseason, and he ran out of pitches basically, and we were able to win in extra innings. But like Xander, I mean, Xander, I was able to have the privilege of coaching him in the summer and the fall one year, and just a great quality guy as well as a phenomenal talent, and not just a prospect, but a guy that just wants to be a dude and a great teammate for those guys. So we got to experience that in the summer, competing against them and having your hitters to try to create a plan when he's running fastballs almost towards their neck, and then breaking off a sweeper across and trying to tell him to stay on a sweeper away when that ball, like, that wasn't a conversation. We didn't even have that as a plan because I didn't want somebody to get hit. And then sure enough, my own son got hit in the head right before he came out of the game. No, we've had the St. Louis area in general, of just not the Metro East. And I mean, we go up to Chatham, and Chatham comes down and plays in our tournament during the middle of the year, and Highland plays every year. Teutopolis, a 2A team, I think they've beat us 2 out of the last 3 teams as a 2A program, but that they play the game extremely well. And they've had a great history themselves, and Coach Fleener does an outstanding job. So putting our guys in those situations, our conference, we've always had teams throughout that, whether it's an O'Fallon, a Belleville East, Belleville West, Collinsville, Alton had a great squad last year, and their staff always does a great job, and really just throughout really helps prepare us. And then we were able to bounce over and play the DeSmits, the Vianis, and the Francis Howell. I mean, you take Francis Howell, this year when I look at our schedule, I think we have 11 or 12 games on the road in a row, which is bad schedule. I'm the schedule maker. So basically there's a bylaw that says that you can miss 2 days of school twice. And to get a full experience, we're going to be able to go. But to really have a full experience, we're just trying to combine those 2 days to make it that you can travel 4 days. So that's something that if you're a coach out there, if you can talk to your AD, your principal, whoever's the voting member of the IHSA, the town halls will be coming up soon, and we should be able to find out by December. And if not, we just won't have as much full experience. But USA Baseball invites teams each year. There's been some Illinois teams. I think there's been 3 Illinois teams in the past. And they invite teams all around the country. Corona, California, who ended up being the national championship in most publications last year, will be returning after they won it last year. So there'll be several teams, I'm sure, from California. There's several teams from Florida. And it's really just a great experience at the training complex. Everything I've heard from all the coaches that have gone kind of across the country have said that if you ever get the opportunity, you have to go. So it's going to be a great experience. So we're just hoping to have the full experience. And right there in Cary, which is right there in that triangle with Duke, North Carolina, and North Carolina State, Wake Forest nearby, hopefully we'll be able to take a campus visit to one of those, as well as maybe catch a game or two, as well as face some of the best competition. But that when we come back from that trip, then we host Francis Howell on a Friday, or yes, I think we might travel to Francis Howell on a Friday. Last year we were able to face Christian Brothers and Jason Mott's team out of Memphis. So we've established great relationships, and the McCracken staff, they do such a great job and have a great facility. So our guys just take a 2-hour jump due south, and to be able to expand those boundaries. So really the whole Metro East, but then we're able to kind of expand that by hosting the teams early in the year from the Metro East Kickoff Classic, which we're just about to finish up the schedule. We got some exciting things. I was kind of waiting on the schedule for we have a new park in town that is about 3 years old, but we've added 4 high school fields. Are in the progress right now, so it's like they're going to have one quad that's going to kind of remind you of like Lake Point, the way it ramps up, and it's going to be really nice. And then it's 2 of the fields are kind of like Hoover, where you can also play youth games in the like 2 youth games in the outfield at a time. So it's really expansive, but we'll be able to utilize those fields, all turf fields, which will just make the event even better. So
about the NHSI, Coach, I want to get that announcement out there as much as we can to give your player, because it's for your players to get the experience that they've earned and deserved by you guys being selected to that event. And from sitting here in Illinois, I know how big of an honor that is for them to invite an Illinois team. It doesn't happen very often. It's a lot of California, a lot of Florida, a lot of those premier, baseball states, if you may. But Brother Rice has been invited from Illinois in the past. There's been a few other schools, and hopefully we can pass something so you guys can be down there for the full time, the full experience, and get that. And then alongside that, represent Illinois well and do well, and you have the players that will showcase well there, and the team obviously like you guys always do will play the game the right way, or attempt to. But Gavin, I think Coach brought up these facilities that are coming down to the Edwardsville area, this 4-field complex, and just in general, I feel like fields down there have been popping up. They've been investing in turf fields all around the area, whether it's Gordon T. Moore down there in Alton, or your own JV field at Edwardsville, having a turf facility at Edwardsville, and just Edwardsville being a special community in the state in general. But Gavin, go ahead, and I know you want to get in there.
Yeah, Coach, I know you don't have a ton of time left, but just quick question. How, a lot of teams have a hard time, like year to year, continuing to have success as a baseball program, just with trying to get, the right players and find success. But what are you guys doing, and your staff, what are you guys doing to try and develop, like, the youth baseball players to try and get them to, be the type of talent that Edwardsville is used to?
Well, we have a lot of players that play the game when they're younger. Our middle school is probably our main feeder program. I know there's a ton of guys playing summer ball and in the spring prior to that, and even some fall ball. But we're able to, a lot of our staff, I don't coach the middle school. I've always kind of been that outlier if we needed somebody to coach, but it's also given me a chance to see my own guys play, or my own sons play in college fall programs, or that's setting. But a lot of our coaches coach those teams, so they're able to kind of streamline kind of what the program's about, just the daily work that goes into it. We try not to make it a super ramped up where they're getting their daily work in, but they have to have fun. That's kind of one thing that I didn't talk about our varsity in general. Like it's about having fun. One of the things that we have on the back of our stadium wall, whenever I put up we bought a kind of a brick type thing that goes in the side of the backstop, and it said play for the love of the game. And that's something that I always wanted to, even if we're playing at a high level or playing for a state championship or whatever, play for the love of the game. And that's what kind of Drew, you talked about earlier about kind of having the presence or just enjoying the moment at the state tournament. Like that's a true blessing that I feel like our team is given. And we've prepared along the way, so you want your players to trust it. But then you need to make sure you enjoy the moment, because I think there's been some times maybe in the past where I wanted to win so bad that it was more of a let's make sure we win rather than just enjoy and trust yourself and be yourself. But our kids in our community, I think, see our fields. They know that we value them as individuals as well as try to grow a team environment. So that would be our main feeder program. And then we have camps and stuff like that really try to tie in some past players. And we bring out, a lot of times that camp has been, we'll get off a bus. If we go to the state tournament, we get off the bus at like 2:30 in the morning. And then whether we have a reception the next day, and then all of a sudden camp hits at 8 a.m. and we have 125 to 150 kids. So we'll bring out the trophy and have them try to get the full experience. And we'll talk to them about like, hey, have you guys been in a tournament? Yeah. How many teams were in your tournament? Well, 6, 8, 16. Whoa, 16. That's a lot. Well, we just won a tournament that there was no pool play. And there was 146 teams, whatever it is. I usually look it up to try to give them an accurate number, but that's something that's great about our community. We have great support throughout. Our booster club does an outstanding job, so we can kind of run a collegiate style program from the standpoint of if we want to get machines, we have hack attacks, two junior hacks for both levels. So then our middle schools are able to use them. Our freshman JV practices combined. So that gives us great development, and it helps our coaches if they don't have to throw BP all the time and they're actually able to see velo. It sustains their time too. And we've had a stable staffing kind of throughout that we try to give our guys areas where they can be experts in and kind of expand on those without overbearing them. And then when we get to the end of the year, we need our lower levels to make the 4-hour trek for a scouting up in Chicago. They're still able to be charged up and bring back the information that can help propel us.
Coach, I actually want to hop in there. You touched on your staff. We talked a little bit about your arms earlier. You guys are pretty loaded with arms. We talked about the junior arms you got, but you also have Tyler Powell and Dax Dunnell that are seniors. Powell's going to SIUE, Dunnell's going to John A. I know Coach Mike Sabatino's your pitching coach down there, who's highly regarded in that area of the state. Just kind of talk me through what you guys are able to do just from a development standpoint with your arms, because it's rare to have that many good arms in high school. So just talk me through what you guys are doing from a development standpoint there.
Sure. Yeah, I've been fortunate. When I was at Triad, I was also the pitching coach, and I wouldn't say I was a pitching coach. I was the guy that made sure that the pitchers got work, and then I carried on the same duties that I have now of take the ball, give the ball type stuff. But in between then, it allows me to focus on some other things. And Mike Waldo was with me, or I was actually with him because he was there before me. He had been coaching since 1980 with my dad when he volunteered. And then I can't even remember the actual year that he retired, and now he's an assistant coach at SIUE basketball. And they got a really good team this year, so it's going to be fun to follow their program. But he did a great job of making sure that the guys got daily work and were competitive and got there, and everything from the weights to making sure that they're throwing their pins and competing on the mounds. And Mike does the same thing from that standpoint. Mike's really adept at a lot of the modern throwing programs and is able to individualize a lot of different things. And obviously, we have a lot of depth. This is probably the most depth that we've had pitching. It won't guarantee success. It's kind of allowed us to play the schedule that we're going to play and also play with the freedom like, okay, if we lose more games or whatever. Like, I mean, we were 4-5 after we came back from Hoover last year. And our guys didn't miss a beat. They went back and then we faced O'Fallon, and I was like, oh my gosh, we might. We didn't even go there as far as the standpoint of what could our record be. It was about getting better, and our guys buy into that. But that's going to be a challenge. I mean, that's a challenge that we already talk about our guys and before weights or bring them in the office and talk to them about like we have several guys that are going to be competing for innings, and that's going to be a challenge. So. That'll be something that we'll have to go through. But those guys, I mean, the upside, the good thing is we're not locking in on anything of, well, this guy's our number one already, this guy's our number three, whatever it is. It's go out and compete and do the best you can. And that helps those guys prepare when they actually get to college because they've been in those environments and they've had to go out and earn everything. And that's not to say that we have that depth every year, but this is kind of a rare occasion where you have guys that have been seasoned or are ready to break out like a Dax Dunnell. And Tyler Powell has shown it at different times, but to do it over a stretch of time.
I just remember we were watching your guys' third place game, and Tyler came in to close the game. And I was kind of blown away just because I know we have old friend Diego Solares was on this podcast before and with us. And I just remember asking, like, who's this Powell kid? Because, like, I felt like, didn't hear a ton about him in the spring, and then he came out and was honestly lights out for you guys to close out that third place game. So, really excited to see what he does for you guys this spring.
Yeah. Well, I mean, kind of go back on Mike, Coach Sabatino. He was a guy that we hired knowing that Coach Waldo was going to be retiring sometime in the near future, and he came in and led our freshmen, and then works with some guys at a training facility nearby, and he just individualizes everything, and his demeanor is kind of that calm presence that guys can go out and trust what they do, but he also holds them accountable. And I don't see confrontations. There's that testing and let's expand your boundaries, but he does a great job of monitoring what they're doing and giving them the information. And we've adapted a lot of our like we used the track for the pitching and for him organizing what the pitchers are doing each day. And we're getting to the point where we're organizing a lot of our offense and defensive items through that.
I don't want to keep you too long, and if you do need to go, just let us know. But one thing I wanted to ask, because first off, I feel very fortunate that you were willing to come on the podcast. You were one of our first options and choices for a reason. I think you are a huge positive for Illinois high school baseball. You're one of the best guys out there. From just your knowledge of the game, your passion for what you do, trying to do it the right way. You mentioned trying to run it like a college program. The amount of respect that we have for you is tremendous, and the success, shows it for itself. But I also you have a very unique background in Illinois, in Edwardsville. It's been a family affair for you. Starting with when you were a kid. I don't know, your dad coached at Edwardsville, then you went through and played at Edwardsville. Now you coach at Edwardsville. Both of your boys went through Edwardsville. Both were lucky enough to host a state title trophy. Just take me through your childhood, how you got into the game, what your dad was all about, his coaching background. Is that really what pushed you into wanting to be a coach? I just find it not remarkable, but just really cool that you guys have been ingrained in that community, and there's been so many quality Funkhousers to come out of there. So talk to me about the beginning days as a player. How cool was it watching your kids come through, and just, what set you on this path?
Sure. Yeah, my dad was the high school coach until 1981. And he did it for, I think, 7 years, if I'm not mistaken. And it was just, I was a bad boy then and hung out around the team. And then whenever I was younger, he would take me. SIU Edwardsville had a turf patch when nobody really had turf. But they had a turf patch just outside their track area and close to their softball field that I would go take ground balls. He would hit me ground balls and throw batting practice. And it was just a big open area, and it was like a playground for me before every Little League game. I mean, we probably played like 18 Little League games. So he would always go, we would leave about 2 hours for the game, go there, get an hour work, and then we would show up at the Little League game with everybody else. And it gave, my dad really instilled that love for the game without having pressure, but make sure you get work. And then I was able to watch his. I remember hanging out in Springfield when they were at the state tournament and be able to see their 80 team play. Actually, 80 was his last year, sorry. And see them compete at the state tournament. So, and then he came into, and I think it was in like third grade or fourth grade. He came in show and tell and brought a big old school calendar with the Pepsi sponsorship on there. And I kind of saw everybody light up that they're intrigued by it. So I think I always had in the back of my mind I wanted to coach. And then had the privilege of playing for Coach Pyle. And we had a lot of good players. It was just fun playing with other guys that loved the game and loved to compete. And Coach Pyle just had a great influence on our whole team of just like, it doesn't matter who you are. We're going to go out and compete. And we made it to the state tournament my sophomore year. Yeah, I played shortstop and second base. The pitcher for that game in particular moved me to shortstop. And that was fun, being able to be in that setting. And then my junior year, Jay Thompson ended up knocking us out. We had a really good team, but it was a 2-class system. And then my senior year, we ended up making it to state and actually beat Joliet Catholic in the championship. So, I mean, I played with guys like Tom Price he was the career wins leader at Notre Dame, played for Pat Murphy. I know my sophomore year, my first 2 letters were from Duke and from Pat Murphy from Notre Dame. And my academics were going to be the first thing that I looked at as a sophomore.
I thought you would have tested into the Ivy League.
I ran into Pat Murphy at a clinic, and he told me that I turned him down for a scholarship. He told everybody in front. Everybody asked me, they're like, "Man, you must have been really good."
But I'll take it all
like,
day long. Keep going,
he's
Coach.
Exaggerating,
Yeah.
and I was not that good. But the 450 people at the I-70 clinic thought I was pretty good. But I got a chance to play with Tom Pry. I mean, he played like 3 or 4 years with the Dodgers and probably had a chance to make it to the big leagues until he ended up retiring. And then Mark Little ended up breaking through in the big leagues and played with the Cardinals and Rockies and a few other teams, played in the postseason for the Diamondbacks. And Dave Slimmer, I mean, I got guys up and down the road. J.J. Serba were 2 guys that played both at Missouri State. Joe Blassigan was another pitcher that played at Missouri State. So I was around a lot of guys that were a lot better than me, that loved the game, respected the game, and gave me that experience. And then I went to Western Illinois and was able to play there, and played with a guy named Rick Short, who's now the hitting coach one of the hitting coaches for the Diamondbacks, and was a scout. And prior to that, made it to the big leagues. I think he was 1 for 1, hit a double, got sent down, and then came back at the end of the year. After he got traded to the Cubs, and then played in Japan for like 5 years. But just a great baseball guy as well as a great guy. But Dick Paulo gave me a great opportunity to play, and then I was a grad assistant there as a semester. And then when I came back, I was at Triad for 3 years. Mike Scroggins was the baseball coach whenever I was in high school, but he was the principal at the time. So when I called over there looking for a place to student teach, he welcomed me with open arms. And then their baseball coach was looking to kind of
Head
go take
coach.
over the football program. So that
Yeah,
opened up a
wow.
position for me. So I was taking over. I think I was hired at 22, and as their head coach, and that in a growing community, and a bunch of kids that love playing, and we had a great experience there. I loved the relationships that we established there, and we were able to win conference a couple years, and then whenever I came over to Edwardsville, just being back there and seeing the opportunity to continue to expand. I remember working Illinois Clinic, and Mike Napoleon and Jay Thompson are there, and a bunch of guys. And I hear some guys, we're at breakfast, and I hear some guys kind of like, hey, who's got that Edwardsville job? Who's going to get that Edwardsville job? And one of the guys was like pointing at me, like, I think Funkhouser got it. They're like, who? And they're like, so then they start gigging me. They're like,
Exactly.
oh, so you got the Edwardsville job. You know, if you lose, you're going to get fired. And I was like, well, that might be the case. If you lose one game. And our superintendent was
Yeah.
Dr. Ed Hightower, who is a big time basketball official. Did 10 big Final Fours, and he liked to win. So that was something we were fortunate. We made the state tournament the first couple of years, and had some teams after that too. And he had a great vision for continuing to expand our program. We built the field up that we had. The JV turf field was kind of created because the football field, the construction, they kind of messed up on that a little bit, and they were able to give us an infield for free the first time. And we've been able to expand. So it's been great. Our community continues to grow, and our school's always been supportive of what we do, and they kind of give the freedom to schedule the way we want to schedule, and we respect the support that we get from our community and our administration, and our parents are awesome with, like, we have a golf outing, then we'll do the kickoff classic to open the year, and then we'll play at Busch Stadium every year, which is just one of those other things that give our kids, it seems like we've built in within the schedule where we have kind of special events every couple weeks or whatever, whether it's the kickoff classic, and then maybe the Busch game, and then this year it'll be going to Cary. Last year we went to Hoover, and then our own tournament later, and along the way you have conference and all those other things. So our guys are able to get a great experience that we don't see a drop off kind of within our practices, because our guys always know that there's something that's coming up to test us. And then it's my job to make sure that we don't overload. We kind of cleared the schedule, so when we went to Cary, we weren't going to be exhausted there or coming back, and we'll have chances to refine our game. So just a great set. There's not a better setting for me in particular, and Craig Olau's another guy with our staff that has been with us for several years. And we've always had guys that wanted to be a part of something that's bigger than themselves. And that's what I feel privileged to be a part of.
Grateful that I can consider you a friend, and continue to watch what you're doing down there at Edwardsville. It's been really, really fun to watch. And the fact that you guys were going for a three-peat this past year, and from all we can see on our end, it looks like there's no reason why you guys aren't going to scare, Joliet and the state title again and make a run for it. And we'll be following you. I'm sure I'll be in touch, and I would love to have you back on, because there's more I want to ask you. I could go for a long time here, Coach. Just with everything you've been through, everything you've done, all the players you've coached. I'd love to keep throwing back some names. I know you mentioned a lot of names that you played with, but guys you've coached.
Do you have time for one quick question, Tim?
Sure, I'm good.
All right. So I have one question, and I'm kind of glad you brought it up with that story about the convention when the coaches were giving you some a hard time. So dealing with expectations, whether it be locally or on a larger scale, do you guys feel any pressure, or do you feel like there's expectations that you have to, perform to, or how do you deal with that?
I think it kind of goes back to the love of the game. It's I wouldn't say it's easy to do, but I truthfully don't put myself in a framework or want our setting to be pressured. Like, I guess you could look at pressure as two different things. The pressure to do what you're supposed to be doing every day is there. If you want to call that pressure, I wouldn't call that pressure. It's just about being focused and achieving the task at hand in a really micro level and enjoying that passion for that. Like a lot of people watch the game and they're like, oh, the game's really boring. It's slow. Well, if you really understand what's going into each pitch and you understand how you got there with each skill development, then I think it builds that kind of mind that's really like intrigued, like, ooh, what could we be like? So we try to instill that on our players. And then I think as a staff, I never looked at, when I was younger, whenever somebody said that to me at that coach's clinic, I was like, well, I'm younger. I've always kind of wanted to coach in college. So if we lose and it doesn't work out, I'm still young enough to figure something else out. Now, I'm going to try 100%, and ultimately that's all I could do, which sounds easier said than done most of the time, but I just try to simplify that. And then the same thing as I'm sure I coached with a little more pressure my first few years, but then I think experience, and then kind of grew in my faith in God, and just realizing how minuscule kind of the baseball realm is, but the relationship building and the love for each player, and then to expand that and try to build that amongst our team has given me kind of that presence of like let's just go out and enjoy the game to the highest level that we can and enjoy our time together. So from there, I don't like our team. We didn't really talk. I think we talked maybe twice. I heard the team talk about a repeat after the 2022 season. And then last year, I don't even really think we even talked about like a three-peat. Like, I'm sure the guys, it was driving force, but I didn't hear it in the locker room. We didn't have to address it as a team. It was just, I think our mantra of just being on mission each day and taking care of what's ahead of us. We know kind of what's at the end.
Is there a runner that you sent from third base? Is there a hit and run call? Is there a steal call that you have put on that lives with you forever and ever that was a bad call that sticks with you and you're up at night and randomly will think about it or something?
Oh, well, I probably had a lot of those.
Yeah.
I mean, I realize that's one of those things where you realize that you're going to make mistakes and the players are too. So I probably used to feel like we had to play perfect baseball, and whenever I did that, that was bad. And then if I did it on myself, then I had to be self-reflective. But it was funny. I was just surfing YouTube maybe last night or the night before, and somehow it came up, the Maris game that you're talking about. And I knew, I think it was Ewell, but it was a guy that had the big league arm. And we knew from our scouting report, I knew when I watched infield, I talked to all the guys, and then sure enough, our guy hit it so firm against the wall that it came back to him. And I got caught up trying to send him, and he had no chance. So then I stopped him, and then he got in a rundown and got out. So that was on me. But I would say last year in the semi, I kind of wishing away I would have safety squeezed when we ended up getting first and third. We've utilized that at times, and I didn't do it. I probably would have later in that bat, but I didn't do it, and we end up flying out. But those are different things that I think I've learned, that if we're in that moment, I need to kind of trust my gut as well as Tom Pyle was really good about that. He probably coached with his gut a little more. But I've learned to be like, let's lay it out there. I mean, Drake Westcott, we had steal third, and then they threw it away. We picked up a run in the state tournament one year, state championship, against in 2022. We had a runner on second. Blake Burris, who just finished up playing at Arkansas State, laid down a bunt to third. Runner from second, which was a pinch runner. we're having him pretty much go, or he's going to shut down if he can't. But he lays down a great bunt to third. They had DeMarco that had played short, pitched, but they had like 5 pitchers each year. So when we scouted, it was like, hey, when they get on the mound, their defense isn't going to be as good. And it looked like their third baseman was maybe a freshman.
Yep,
so
Jaden Lott winner.
Hey, let's put the pressure on him. And he had a tougher play, so it wasn't like he lost the game. He had a tougher play, and sure enough, the throw's a little up line, and their guy pulls off, and our guy goes home, and we're able to kind of steal a run there. But those type of things that we always practiced, but now we practice with more, like, what are the ways, how can we score a run when we're not going to do it with 5+ hits? Mm-hmm. So how can we really hone in on vaulted leads, being able to identify when the guy's not holding us, when guys are holding runners really well? How can we either move runners via the bunt, or just be good with two-strike situations, or have enough awareness that we're starting a runner and we want them to run, and realize that we might get thrown out here, but we're going to take a little bit of chance. I know that came into action last year against Collinsville. We stole third base with Hunter Baugh, and he wouldn't be a guy that you would say, oh, he's going to just flat out run like Hayden Moore does back in the day. And sure enough, he got a slider away. Their catcher tried to make a throw that was tougher and threw it out in the outfield, and we were able to sneak in a second run to kind of an insurance run. But being able to talk through our guys in advance to know, like, when we're so-called rolling the dice, there's really a percentage behind it, and we want to equip them to play with that freedom. So,
well, and I love it because the
more
whole
of a back and
onus
forth
behind it is you're putting pressure on the defense in a tight situation. Like you're any way that you can, you're putting pressure on the defense. You're trying to catch them at a time when maybe they're not expecting it. Like you said, a Drake Westcott stealing third, but it's like, if you have confidence in Drake Westcott and knowing your guys like that, I think you know your guys and you put them in these situations throughout the year. So it's not happening for the first time at the state title.
That's the key for me. Is I used to coach thinking we had those tools in our arsenal, but we weren't I didn't fully equip them. If a person got picked off first base and in a big throwing or a big stealing situation, I hadn't equipped them enough. So then it was like, I mean, I could look over there like, come on, why? Like, you knew, why couldn't we execute that? Well, now we spend more time executing. It's not to say that we're going to execute every single time, but I think our percentages, because the players know the why. They know the why. They've been equipped with the how, and then they've been in that fire of competition. And when you do that, they're like, okay, this is my time to go. And there's no blockade. There's not that doubt. And if they do, I tell them, look at me. Like, I'm the guy that didn't pay attention to my own scouting report with Ewell throwing. But if you get thrown out, it's on me. Now do your job and get a good jump, or take in the intangibles. And these are the things that you need to look for, rather than me just looking for it in the coach's box. So I think it's a higher level of communication, like they're then equipped to play at a college level, because if they're given that freedom, or even if they're not given that freedom, but they know why the coach is doing it, because now I can seal on a vaulted lead because he's not varying his looks or his timing, etc. He's not paying attention. So it just makes for an enjoyable kind of pathway. So thanks for everything.
Oh, thank you. And listening to you talk, it's evident. You know, you're all about it. You're looking at all angles. You know the game. You're relaying the messaging, the messages to your team, and it's a breath of fresh air just to talk to you and to talk baseball and to talk how you talk to your guys and what you guys are trying to do. And I am a big believer that, you know, college baseball, pro baseball, high school baseball, like the coaches at the high school level in the game of baseball make such a big difference by preparing their team. And you can see it. The coaches that traditionally make a run in the postseason, yeah, they have talent and they have a good roster, but they don't beat themselves, and they're constantly putting pressure on the other team, and they know how to get the most out of their players, and they're at their best, in the postseason. And I've always felt like you've strived to get your teams to be playing the best at the end of the year, and that's what it's all about. And I can't thank you enough, Coach. And we're gonna have to bring you back on because there's some unfinished
I got three
business.
things real quick.
Bring it.
Number one, thanks for everything that you've done and what you guys do. And I know I touched on it earlier, but there's multiple times, kind of going back to the family thing. Like, I didn't get to talk about your boys. I'm talking about my own kids enough, but when you were able to help me through that process, and I was able to bounce on different people, and you were one of those main people to talk through that recruiting process and giving me that independent source. So I really appreciate you doing that. And along that path, my oldest has finished up his last year at Lindenwood. He's playing for PJ Finnegan, and he's really excited about this season. It's fun to be able to drive 45 minutes across the bridge, or about 35 really, to St. Charles, and be able to watch them compete in the OVC and other teams. And just so privileged about the setting that he's in over there and what they do and that university. And then my youngest is down at Central Missouri, where they were number one in the country for a large portion of the year last year as Division II. And he redshirted last year. He's able to get back playing this year, and he's going to have to make his own way, but it'll be fun to watch his continued growth. But Coach Crooks and his staff does a great job down there. They've built a great culture, and they have awesome facilities, and so competitive. So I don't even know what the third one was, but I just wanted to mention those things before I got off.
I love to hear it about your boys, because they both seem to have found a really good fit for them. And I know Evan, did the JUCO route too before he found his place at Lindenwood. And
sure. Yep.
They both have worked to get to where they've gotten to. Especially, I know Evan has put in the hours in the gym to get himself physically as strong as possible. And I think the world of Cole and what he can do down there. And looking forward to following both of them this year. So
great. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for all you do.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate it.